Well, Russia just sent a message to President Biden, back the F off right now, or we will send these same missiles into Europe and the United States. Is anyone listening right now? Or they're just basically playing with fire, playing with death is what they're doing. So what exactly happened? Well, early this morning, this happened. Russia, for the first time in world history, launched their new hypersonic ballistic missiles called the Orashink missile. And it is absolutely devastating, what you're seeing here. They could not stop it. Notice there is no air defense fire coming in to try to stop this. NATO couldn't stop it at all. The speed with which these things traveled was remarkable, and these things were outfitted with non-nuclear warheads, using hypersonic warheads. So in other words, this was a message. This was a message to the world. We can put nuclear warheads on these, and you can't stop them. We didn't. We used our hypersonic warheads, and it was devastating enough, and we took out all of these military targets. You couldn't do anything about it. We've been warning you about it. And with these long-range attacks inside of Russia, we've been warning you, and here it is. You guys can't stop this. You want to F around and find out some more? Because you know where this is headed right now. You know where this is headed. Here was President Putin just a short time ago delivering a message to the world, really, not just Russia. This has been translated all over the world now, warning the West. Here is what you can expect from us. Watch.
Такому оружию на сегодняшний день не существует. Ракеты атакуют цели со скоростью 10 махов. Это 2,5-3 километра в секунду. Современные, имеющиеся в мире системы противовоздушной обороны и создаваемые американцами системы противоракетной обороны в Европе подобные ракеты не перехватывают. Это исключено. Подчеркну еще раз, что не Россия, а именно США разрушили систему международной безопасности. И, продолжая бороться, цепляться за свою гегемонию, толкают весь мир к глобальному конфликту.
I mean, just let this sink in for a second.
Well, you'd have to be a meathead to be like, yeah, I want that. I hear you and I raise you this. Like, who wants that? Who's not afraid of that?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying to think. And by the way, 3,000 miles, the range on these, 1,000 miles up to 3,000 miles, hit all of these European targets, and they can't do anything to stop it. This comes like just hours after the United Kingdom allowed these Storm Shadow missiles to be fired into Russia. This is a clear message to the United Kingdom. This is a clear message to Germany. All of your European allies, all of those European allies, even Portugal that supplied a tank. One tank, like from the 1970s. Spain, all of you guys, France. Like, you want to keep effing around, you're going to find out. Now, Zelensky got on his cell phone and recorded a quick message in response to this, saying they're still trying to gather the information about these advanced weapons that Russia fired into their territory. But he basically said they're treating Ukraine as a proving ground for these advanced weapons. Yeah, how astute of you.
Сьогодні була нова російська ракета. Всі характеристики, швидкість, висота міжконтинентальної балістичної. Зараз тривають експертизи. Очевидно, що Путін використовує Україну як полігон.
Yeah. So it is a proving ground, right? So we know that NATO is using Ukraine as a proxy. Therefore, it is a proving ground.
So if you were a real leader, sir, you would say, I need to protect my people and abandon my allies in the West and go to peace talks so that none of us die. That's what a real leader would do. That's what a real man would do. I
mean, do you see overnight Zelensky basically admitted that, hey, all of our talk about trying to get Crimea back by force, it's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to get it back by force.
Way to wake up.
Hello.
Okay.
Go ahead, David.
Well, and you're listening to a country that is nowhere near you and ignoring your neighbor. Russia is their neighbor. That would be like us ignoring something with Mexico and Mexico having some deal with Russia. It's like, you're our neighbor. We need to have a good relationship.
No, that's like knowing your neighbor has a meth lab, a very unsafe meth lab, and being like, cool, my kids probably can sleep well at night.
Now, all of this, of course, go back to 2014, right? And so when anyone in our chat room who's not familiar with this war doesn't understand the history of it, of course, this all started in 2014, arguably before that, but really in 2014 when the United States fomented a coup backed by the CIA inside of Ukraine. And, of course, then started attacking ethnic Russians in the contested region of the Donbass, Donetsk, all of that area, right? Those people did not want a United States-backed government in Kiev. And they called upon the help of the Russian Federation. Well, they were being genocided then for years, about 9 years, and Putin had had enough. They had a peace agreement on the table that was, of course, scuttled. That was scuttled by the United States and Boris Johnson in the UK, which are the ones driving this entire process right now to launch these long-range missiles into Russia.
I don't think it's accurate to say Putin had had enough. The mayors in those regions petitioned Russia, and this went to parliament. So it was not Putin's personal decision. It was Russian government that voted to save the people that were their ethnic Russians in those cities. So when we give this to Putin personally, we're handing that narrative to the American government that likes to frame him as somebody who acts on his whims.
Like he's an autocrat.
Right.
That's true. But ultimately, with the Russian parliament, it was a decision to finally move into that area to protect those ethnic Russians.
Right. At least Russians get a vote on the wars that they go to. We don't. That.
So, but remember, we had this missile treaty in place that was scuttled by the United States. So Putin this morning said, well, the United States made a huge mistake in abandoning this missile treaty. And now you're seeing the results of the power and the advanced technology that you cannot stop. Watch.
And we believe it is a mistake on the part of the United States to destroy the system that was established by the missile treaty in 2019. We see that the United States and their allies are now considering and has successfully tested their capabilities to deploy advanced missile systems in different parts of the world. And their exercises routinely include the use of such weapons. Russia has unilaterally refused to deploy intermediate and small-range missiles until we see similar weapons deployed by the United States in a region of the world. The use of the novel system, which was essentially an operational test, was carried out in response to the decisions made by the United States and their allies.
So this new novel system, he admits it was a test. And he then says it went off flawlessly. And as you can see here again, this was the launch of it. Nothing even came close to stopping these hypersonic attacks in Ukraine using these advanced weapon systems, traveling at the speed and the distance that they did.
Now, the New York Times today has some unnamed officials saying that some inside the Biden administration are considering returning Ukraine's nuclear weapons that were taken after the fall of the Soviet Union. So you recall we had an agreement with Ukraine to remove their nuclear weapons in exchange for protection. That's why we've been arming them to kill their own people for over a decade. Now we're like, well, we could give it back to them. They could hit Russia. Russia could nuke them. They could just collectively nuke each other, and then we could stay out of it. That is not what Russia's new nuclear treaty allows for. Russia says that anyone who arms someone who hits us will be considered a target as well. So they're really playing with fire, not just fire, but fireworks, nuclear fireworks.
As Chris Ballantyne in our chat says, wrong. It started when NATO and the United States broke the Minsk Accords. Absolutely. So 2014, you have this coup. The United States and NATO back off of the Minsk Accords, which were all a joke to begin with, right?
Well, Bill Clinton, I believe, was quoted saying the United States never, was it Bill Clinton? Never was meant to adhere to that. Or was it John McCain?
No, well, you're thinking of, in Germany, why can't I think of
Angela Merkel.
Angela Merkel, yes. I didn't get much sleep last night. My dog had me up at 4 a.m. for crying out loud. Anyway, Angela Merkel, who jokingly said, we never meant to adhere to the Minsk Accords at all. So they were toying with the Russian Federation the entire time. They never meant to have peace. Because they're liars. That's exactly how this unfolded. And David, go ahead. I'm sorry I cut you off there.
Well, no, you're fine. It also, when you look at those missiles hitting, it doesn't look like there's a huge spread either. So it's like it's so precise on what it's hitting that it's like hitting directly on its target. It doesn't look like it's dispersing much outside of that.
No, and that's been the analysis from weapons inspectors that I've spoken to, and also separate military analysis that the precision of these missiles was dead on. That there's no other way to describe it. Incredibly precise damage in here. Of course, again, as Putin said, this is a response to Ukraine firing now British Storm Shadow missiles into Russia and United States missiles into Russia. Ukraine fired at least 10 British-provided Storm Shadow missiles into Russia's Kursk region, and according to the Wall Street Journal and several other media outlets last night, Ukraine has used these same Storm Shadow missiles, which have a range of 155 miles, in strikes on attacking Crimea as well. And they've authorized this use of these Storm Shadow strikes in Russian territory after President Biden gave them the green light for Ukraine to use the ATACMS. So Storm Shadows and ATACMS, you can use them all. This is in direct violation of what President Biden said when he was Senator Biden. Here he was on Chris Matthews' Hardball, saying that this is an impeachable offense to get us into a war like this. It's unbelievable. Watch.
But I want to ask you about something you've been involved with. You said that if the President of the United States had launched an attack on Iran without congressional approval, that would have been an impeachable offense. Do you want to review that comment you made? Well, how do you stand on that now?
Yes, I do. I want to stand by that comment I made. The reason I made the comment was as a warning. The reason I don't say those things lightly, Chris. You've known me for a long time. I was chairman of the Judiciary Committee for 17 years, or its ranking member. I teach separation of powers and constitutional law. This is something I know. So I got together and brought a group of constitutional scholars together to write a piece that I'm going to deliver to the whole United States Senate, pointing out the president has no constitutional authority to take this nation to war against a country of 70 million people unless we're attacked or unless there is proof that we are about to be attacked. And if he does, I would move to impeach him. The House obviously has to do that, but I would lead an effort to impeach him. The reason for my doing that, I don't say it lightly. I say it because they should understand that what they were threatening, what they were saying, what was adding up to be, what looked like to the rest of the world what we're about to do, would be the most disastrous thing that could be done at this moment in our history that I can think of.
Thank you, President Biden. It's like going into a time capsule.
I don't think he remembers that.
Can you imagine? Like, he's literally calling for the impeachment of himself. He's laying the groundwork for, as Thomas Massey said, like the impeachment of himself here in this sort of time capsule video. By the way, we had Congressman Keith Self on the show earlier this week who brought articles of impeachment to the House. And so there is a movement right now under the 25th Amendment to remove President Biden from office because of this. And the world is waking up right now, at least the mainstream media is waking up, that yes, we are in World War III. Even Putin himself today said because of the UK's involvement in this is now a global war. This is not just in Ukraine. This is now a global war against NATO, the UK, the United States. So call it whatever you want. Here's the Hill, now going to blame Trump for it. World War III is now Trump's to lose.
So stupid.
Can you imagine?
I can't even bend over backwards to understand that logic.
And they're not the only one. I mean, there's multiple news reports today now calling it World War III. And now the U.S. response here is the U.S. military is prepared for nuclear strikes.
But yours to lose implies that you would win it. So, like, we could win it if Biden stayed in office.
Right.
But Trump will lose it. I don't think there's any serious military analyst that I've ever seen that shows that we could win a war against Russia or China.
No.
So that's so fucking stupid.
That would be like me, like being at an airport, seeing Mike Tyson there, me taking a swing at him, and then looking at my daughter and going, "All right, he's all yours."
Yeah.
You know,
right. Go get him, Adelaide. Go get him. Yeah. Go get Mike Tyson.
Okay.
All right. We've got more news to get to.
That is unserious journalism and dangerous. And I hope they get a yeast infection for that.
Today's show is brought to you by Native Path Collagen. Now, finding an honest doctor that isn't following in the footsteps of Big Pharma can feel impossible. That's why millions of men and women have turned to one Texas doctor and the 7 reasons that he says anyone over the age of 50 should be drinking this one thing. That's right. It's not milk or another calcium-rich drink. Instead, it's a unique protein that naturally declines with age, and it's proven to significantly increase bone strength and soothe joint pain. Oh, we all need that. It minimizes wrinkles and cellulite, even enhances hair follicle thickness, and even reverses nail damage, with users reporting results in as little as 2 weeks. That's right. As a partner of the show, this Texas doctor is offering Redacted listeners up to 45% off his bone, joint, and ligament restoring formula. It's all you need to do is go to this URL right on your screen, getnativepathcollagen.com/redacted. It has thousands of 5-star reviews, over 4 million jars sold. Every order comes with a 365-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to try it today. And Redacted listeners can visit right now, getnativepathcollagen.com/redacted to get up to 45% off while supplies last.
Matt Gaetz resigned from his appointment as Attorney General. He says because of the controversy surrounding his appointment. Here was his ex-post about it, saying he'd had a bunch of meetings. While the momentum was strong, it's clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. And there's no time to waste. He says Trump's DOJ has to be ready on day one, so he respectfully withdraws his appointment. Here's what President Trump said about it on Truth Social. He says, I really appreciate the recent efforts of Matt Gaetz in seeking the approval of Attorney General. He was doing well, but at the same time, he didn't want to be a distraction. So he says he's got wonderful things ahead of him. Who knows what Matt Gaetz has ahead of him? We will see. This came after the House Ethics Committee on Wednesday voted not to release their own report on Matt Gaetz. And several committee members say, well, it's just not done yet. Some told Politico, yes, it is done. We want to vote on it again in December. Now it won't matter because he's not a congressional appointee. He's not a cabinet appointee or a congressional member. Now, the report details allegations that Gaetz had sex with a 17-year-old girl and that he paid for sex with underage girls. The Department of Justice, though, investigated this for 3 years and they declined to prosecute. They cited a lack of credible evidence because one of their primary sources was Joel Greenberg, who was himself actually convicted of child sex trafficking. And Greenberg had a reputation of actually accusing other men of this very thing. In fact, falsely, he accused a political opponent who was a high school music teacher of pedophilia, and that turned out to be false. He even wrote fake letters to the school proving that this guy had done this when he never did. Now, Greenberg had offered to testify against Gaetz to reduce his own sentence, but obviously the DOJ knew that that's a faulty witness if this guy has done it. Not only has this guy done that before, this guy has, you'll excuse this expression, done that same girl. So it's the same 17-year-old girl that was in question having sex with Matt Gaetz, who we know actually did have a sexual relationship with Greenberg. There's also evidence that she lied about her age, presenting herself as an 18-year-old. So what we do know is faulty. Now, of course, it's possible that the House Ethics Committee found things that the DOJ did not. I wouldn't put that at very likely, but it's definitely possible. If they found something that the DOJ didn't, and they did a report on taxpayer dollars, we should know about it. Absolutely, we should, right? It's in our best interest to know about all investigations about congressional representatives, not just Matt Gaetz. But then now, who will be Trump's AG pick now that Matt Gaetz has removed himself? Now, Clayton predicted here on the show that he thought Matt Gaetz would fall on the sword in order to push forward Trump's other cabinet picks. That happened. Would you like to victory lap? Go ahead and run around the set.
I don't want to do a victory lap, but all right, I will. I did say that he's not. I think he would fall on the sword here on purpose. There was a plan in place. You'll recall President Trump standing up there on stage, pointing to Matt Gaetz, saying we've got a little secret and people are going to learn about it after the election and there's more to play here. I don't believe that was about his nomination. I think it was about something deeper. And now let's play this out a little bit. Number one, personally, I don't think that this has more to do with any sort of House investigative report. I think this comes right down to Senator John Thune. who is now, of course, the majority leader in the Senate. He is not a Trump fan. He's certainly not a Matt Gaetz fan. This also involves Lisa Murkowski in the Senate, and it also involves Susan Collins of Maine. So was he going to get a Senate confirmation? There were not the senators that were supposed to be rallying around Trump's picks. You already see, I think, Senator John Thune sort of torpedoing this. The other piece of this that I think could be at play here is Marco Rubio is now no longer a senator in Florida. Matt Gaetz, Senator Gaetz now, could he take over Marco Rubio's spot in Florida in the United States Senate? This could all be playing out exactly the way that they planned it.
Right.
Another thing to point out here, too, is, I'll just throw this out here for all transparency purposes. Matt Gaetz also is the only member of Trump's cabinet choices so far that has not received AIPAC funding. The only one. Even Tulsi Gabbard has received money from the Israel lobby. So I think that this was probably doomed from the beginning.
Okay.
And that's just my personal kind of feeling on this. I don't think that he was ever going to be in here. I think this maybe was being used a certain way, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I'm a little bit nervous about what comes next after this post on X from Nicole Shanahan. You recall she was RFK Jr.'s running mate. She says, I've always promised to be an honest broker of my political dealings and transparent with the public. There are two potential appointments that could be coming down the pike that would be a disaster for the people, our health, and the integrity of the administration. I'm working very hard behind the scenes to make sure they don't come to fruition. As I've said, if you smell spoiled ingredients being added to the pot, you need to catch it before it ruins the whole batch. Use your voice. It matters. Now, I have no idea what she would mean by worst case scenario. To my mind, worst case Attorney General would be Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom.
Not going to happen.
Let's see, any one of the Pritzkers, Mitt Romney, I wouldn't be thrilled about. But I don't think she means any of those people. I think she means some kind of swamp insider that has weaseled their way close to President Trump and Vance. That's what I think. But online, some people are rooting for Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, Ashley Moody, the Florida Attorney General. So I also like Louisiana AG Liz Muriel. I'd be okay with that. What are you going to say, David?
Well, I was going to say, based on her comment, it sounds almost like she's talking about somebody that has access to the health side of things, like the FDA side of things, more so than Attorney General, unless it's a direct response
Possibly.
to Matt Gaetz. Yeah.
No, it's definitely not, because it's potential appointments she's talking about, potential political appointments in the cabinet.
And she said would be bad for the health of America. So that makes me think that it's somebody, in the FDA realm.
She's saying the health of the. She says for the people in the health integrity of I think she's talking about the health of the administration.
Right. We can't interpret right now. It could be interpreted so many different ways. We literally don't know. I'm already pissed off enough about Marco Rubio, so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, also remember, I think this is a good point too. Matt Gaetz resigned his seat from the 118th Congress. Nick Sorter pointed this out. It's a great point that he was just reelected, though, to serve in the 119th Congress. So people are like, oh, but he just resigned. He can't get his job back. Well, it doesn't matter because the 118th Congress is ending. He was reelected for the 119th Congress, so he could easily just walk back in and be like, hey, guys, hey, bitches, I'm back, right?
Ooh, Carpet King and Flooring says Jim Jordan for AG. I do like that.
Ooh, that's a good choice, too.
Okay. I'm
but
giving
I think,
some energy
that's also one of those things. If you take Jim Jordan out of the House of Representatives, you take a real major strength inside the House and you put him in his cabinet. So you kind of worry about some of those chess moves right now. Anyway.
Right.
What a week. Holy smokes. Here's more news. Remember how liberals said all these, Venezuelan gangs are just like propaganda to get you scared? You're a racist, right? They called you a racist for that. Mm-hmm. It's just propaganda by Trump voters. It's not really Venezuelan gangs, taking over apartment complexes in Texas and Tennessee and Aurora, Colorado. Well, last night, an assistant to Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, yes, Alvin Bragg, once again in the headlines, but this time it's his assistant, was allegedly robbed and assaulted by Brandon Somoza, a Venezuelan illegal immigrant who was linked to the Tren de Aragua gang. Watch this.
A smiling Brandon Somoza being led out of the Midtown South precinct on West 35th Street this morning. Police say at about 2 a.m. Sunday, he robbed a 38-year-old woman in the hallway of her Hell's Kitchen apartment building He allegedly grabbed her purse, cell phone, and bank cards and also performed a lewd act. The victim is a Manhattan assistant DA. She was not injured. Police traced her stolen cell phone to a hotel on West 45th Street, which led them to believe the suspect is a migrant, and they were able to track him down. Somoza was arrested just last night. Police say he was using drugs on the street and had stolen items with him. Police believe he is part of Tren de Aragua. That's the Venezuelan gang that has preyed on people in Times Square and Central Park.
Now, Democrats, of course, voted for that. So there you go, New York City. That's what you get when you allow a flood of illegal immigrants to come in and you put them up in, provide them money and also provide them hotels, which is also what was provided to this guy. So on taxpayer dollars, he's brought here. You foot the bill for him to be inside of your city in the hotels and provide food and services to him.
Don't DAs carry guns? I mean, Jennifer Lopez did when she played one in that movie. So.
I mean, are you allowed to in New York City? I mean,
I don't know.
Talk about a zone that you're not even, I don't know.
I'm just curious. It's just, forgive the ignorant question, but
I don't know if DAs do, but certainly New York, the NYPD does, but I don't know about DAs. Anyway, Somoza entered the United States illegally back in 2023. He's been arrested multiple times. So good, catch and release. Just release this guy back in. He's been arrested multiple times. And for similar crimes, by the way. So this isn't like a pattern with this guy. He was residing in the Row New York City hotel, which is funded by taxpayer dollars. Now, you'll recall when the mainstream media was basically making fun of anyone who called attention to Tren de Aragua, especially J.D. Vance, who brought it up about Aurora, Colorado. And if you'll recall this great moment when Martha Raddatz couldn't handle it, she just thought, oh my God, you're making too much of this, J.D. Watch.
But I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
Okay, let's just end that with they did not invade or take over the city, as Donald Trump said. I want to move on to
just a few apartment complexes, no big deal.
A few apartment complexes that the mayor did not seem was invading the entire city.
Okay, so where I was going with this, the DA and the gun, Kamala Harris said she knows how to shoot a gun because she has a background in law enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
Because she was the district attorney of... Yeah. So she said she had a gun. You would think, okay, all DAs are packing then?
Yeah, apparently.
According to her. So, okay.
If you suffer from daily pain, I need you to listen to this message very carefully. What we know about pain relief is changing forever. As we age, aches and pains are normal, and we're all searching for effective ways to relieve pain without side effects and addiction. Let's be frank, we've all seen the horrors of the opioid crisis. You may even be affected personally. Your family might know someone that has been affected by this. That's where a pioneering medical scientist comes in, Clint Winters. You may have seen the world-renowned health expert featured in the national media. He's unveiled a natural pain reliever that has taken the world by storm. And I'm talking about Canoladine, the 100% drug-free way to get full-body pain relief without dangerous pills. As you read this right now, Canoladine has become the go-to pain reliever for over 1 million Americans, hundreds of professional athletes. It was even named as the UFC's #1 official pain reliever for the UFC. Right now, you guys can try it. Go to trykano.com/redacted, and you're going to get it for less than $1 per day. You can access the only canoladine product in the world for less than $1 per day. Clint has provided this special link for you guys. You can guys get this special discount. Just go to trykano.com/redacted. I see a bunch of people in the chat who've already ordered this. Give it a shot. If you suffer from chronic pain, you don't want to have that addiction from drugs, try kano.com/redacted, the 100% drug-free canoladine. Try it for less than $1 a day.
Comcast announced that it will spin off its cable networks right after what should have been a ratings boom, a presidential election. Now Comcast says that MSNBC and CNBC are steaming hot turds that they want to get out of their house. So they're spinning off not only those two news networks, but also Sci-Fi, Golf Channel, Oxygen, and USA Network. Does that mean dump them? Well, yeah. Sort of it does. NBC Universal will no longer be the parent company of these networks, and they'll be on their own under a new network called SpinCo. You would think, given the fact that we see that they have an obvious bias, which we call spin, which is usually a bad thing in the news, that they would not use that word. Isn't that weird nomenclature? Anybody?
Well, it's because We're Lying to You Incorporated was already taken, so they had to go through this.
Exactly. Bullshitters Incorporated. Exactly. They literally have spun themselves into a ratings abyss. Take a look at this. From just this week, their ratings from, according to Adweek, that MSNBC's primetime average was down 57% from this time last year. And in the demo, which we call the group between 25 and 54, this is the group that advertisers want the most, they've lost 82% of their audience. 82%. That is crazy. They're only getting 45,000 people in their daytime. They're just, it's bleeding. Like the people they were talking to last year are poof, they're gone. They just don't trust them anymore. How do you sell your network to advertisers when they can see for themselves that 87% of their audience is gone? So it's no wonder that Comcast doesn't want them. Comcast will keep the broadcast network, NBC and NBC News, and also the streaming network Peacock and Bravo. Now, reportedly, MSNBC stars are freaking out over this because it removes their access to NBC News reporting and money. It pushes them lower on the pecking order of old world media. They also worried about whether the network will need to change its name or its logos because it relies heavily on the Peacock and the NBC. So MSNBC would just be MS
spin
or BS
spin zone.
Yeah, CNBC is just C because they can't use these anymore.
Spin news.
Spin
exactly.
News. Yeah.
News you can't trust.
Yeah. MS Spin or whatever. They're just we're workshopping this.
Like
None of this
the
is
news
good.
We were told to bring to you.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly that. And so, their boss, Mark Lazarus, says he doesn't even know if they can use NBC branding anymore. It's just amazing to see that they've just been kind of like stripped naked in public because, nobody wants them anymore. Now, here's CNBC reporting on this. Now, this is them reporting on themselves, and they're trying to give this a positive spin, if you will.
Yeah, Andrew, I think that's really the key piece here. One of my sources very close to the situation said, this isn't the end, this is the beginning, indicating here that in spinning off these cable networks, what Comcast is doing with this new co or this SpinCo is they're putting it in a situation where it could make meaningful acquisitions of other channels. I'm told by sources that we should expect there to be a lot of conversations about Warner Brothers Discovery, maybe looking to sell off some of its assets, the idea that some of those channels would fit well with this SpinCo. And then after that, maybe look at Starz, which is separating out from Lionsgate. That could be paired in here, AMC networks as well.
So yay, Andrew, we're excited about it. We're going to be okay. This is them reporting on themselves. We're going to be looped in with Starz. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily like a lot of gravitas. You know, people are like, oh, this is the news. That's also, they play, doesn't Stars play naked movies in the middle of the night?
I wouldn't know.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
I thought that was Cinemax.
Cinemax. That's what I'm thinking of. Sorry.
Because I've heard it referred to as Skinemax.
Yeah, I've heard that too. No, I don't know. I don't know what Stars. I know that sometimes there's like a show or a movie that's like only on Stars. Like when we open up like the Apple TV, we're like, and it's like, oh, you have to subscribe to Stars. I'm like, I'm not subscribing $10 a month for Stars.
Maybe it's fantastic. I don't know, but it's definitely not like being linked with, you know, some reputable media company. If you're
like
a news,
Redacted.
Yes. Okay. Now, Bill O'Reilly was on News Nation recently, and he says that this means that MSNBC is vapor. Here's how he explains it. It's kind of fun to watch what he has to say. So let's let him say it.
Comcast said, you two, we're going to have to try to mend some cliche fences, and you two are going to go in there and you're going to try to tamp it down. Because Comcast knew the next day they were going to announce that MSNBC is vapor. That is a huge media story.
Why is it vapor? Just because they're spinning it off and putting them in they're spinning off a bunch of brands.
There's no spin-off.
Yeah, there is. It's a spin-off company.
There's no spin-off. See, you buy the propaganda, Cuomo.
Oh, okay.
See what I mean about
I'm just saying
people?
What's being reported.
All right.
But what do you know?
Yeah, I know, but why would you believe what's being reported? You want the real story? Here it comes.
Please.
So they're uncoupling their word, Comcast, MSNBC from NBC News. That means MSNBC has no resources at all. None. They're not going to be able to pay these people millions of dollars, Rachel Maddow, whatever she's making. NBC News is saying, we don't want you around. Why? Because NBC News' numbers, Lester Holt and the Today Show, are catastrophe because half the country equates NBC News with MSNBC, and they won't watch. So NBC is desperately trying to save the mothership of information, and they have to throw MSNBC overboard. They're not putting anything into MSNBC. They want to sell it. So where's Georgie Soros now? Georgie's buying radio stations. You can get MSNBC for nothing. They'll give it to you. They don't want any more of this. Why? Because it's hateful. Not because it's so far left. The whole NBC Comcast hierarchy is far left. But it's hateful. They hate Trump. They hate people who vote for Trump. Everybody knows that. And you know what's next? The View. ABC News is going to have to cut ties with The View. And you saw that today or yesterday when Sunny Hassan had to read a legal statement in the middle of a segment. The lawyers get Whoopi Goldberg's ear and it said, we're bringing a statement in on a teleprompter. She reads it. So it is over for these far left networks. Done, never coming back. Dracula's stake in the heart. Who benefits? News Nation may, but CNN, which is on the ropes too, will probably get some MSNBC viewers.
Wow.
There you go.
What do you think of that?
Well, I'm certainly not going to accuse him of not making sense.
He's not wrong.
It's not. Yeah, you don't disagree with Bill O'Reilly. I mean, he knows the business. He knows what's going on. He knows these people really well.
I'm going to say I enjoyed that. I worked for CNBC and MSNBC, and they're really great people who work there, and I don't want to see any harm come to them. I enjoyed that, though, because they let us all down by not reporting the pandemic, not accurately reporting the war in Ukraine, by allowing Rachel Maddow to sell us the Steele dossier and Russiagate without properly reporting that either. They let us down. They lost the ability to manipulate us emotionally.
By also torpedoing Bernie Sanders purposely and methodically keeping Bernie Sanders off the air so that he couldn't compete with Hillary Clinton. They were totally in the tank for Hillary Clinton, and we had a whistleblower from MSNBC reveal that. So they deserve to die. MSNBC deserves to
because
be
they're
buried.
not doing the journalism. I mean, it's it's not necessarily Schadenfreude where I'm like, hey, you effers, you know, now you die a miserable death, because those are good people with families that work there. But for whatever reason, they refuse to do the job and they let us all down. So that's why I am enjoying that. I would love to see the View implode for the exact same reason, because they're just today they were sitting, this went viral, where they're like, well, we research and other people don't. And I'm like, really? Where's the apology over COVID then? Okay, if you research so badly, because the clinical trials, okay, I'm not going to go off on COVID, but anyhow, so it's fun for us to watch.
I just hope that Rachel Maddow starts like Maddow Plus or something, because I don't know that I can deal with her not being on the air anymore. You know, like I don't know where I'm going to get my information.
Well, how would we know what government propaganda is without her?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would love to see that, because they're in this like cloistered environment. And you saw that with people when they launched CNN Plus, because they thought they were so good. And then within like a month and a half, CNN Plus collapsed. And people like Don Lemon, they launched their own version of that.
Yeah.
And that collapses. So I would love Rachel Maddow to launch her own thing and watch that collapse, because then we would really see in the broad daylight how many people are actually watching her or give a rat's ass about Rachel Maddow. It would be amazing.